Why would a sane man run straight into a wall of spears? You've seen it in movies. Two armies charge, they smash together, and it turns into a messy mosh pit of swords and screaming. But that is a lie. That is not how Vikings fought. If you tried that Hollywood charge in the 9th century, you would be dead in seconds. Real Viking warfare was slow. It was grinding. It was a shoving match where two shield walls pushed against each other until one side collapsed from exhaustion. It was brutal, sure, but it was static. But sometimes a chieftain didn't want to wait. Sometimes he wanted to end the battle right now, regardless of the cost. So he would call for the Svinfylking, the Boar Snout. This wasn't just a formation. It was a suicide mission given directly by Odin himself. To understand why this was the most terrifying thing on a battlefield, we have to look at how it starts. Imagine you're standing in a shield wall. You're safe behind your linden wood board. You're shoulder to shoulder with your brothers. You feel secure. Then, across the field, the enemy line changes. They aren't standing in a straight line anymore. They are bunching up. They are shifting. At first, it looks like a mistake. It looks like a chaotic knot of men. But then the shape becomes clear. It's a wedge, a tight, dense triangle of muscle and iron pointing right at your chest. This is the Svinfylking, and if you see it forming opposite you, you know that in about 2 minutes you are going to be hit by the equivalent of a human freight train. Let's break down the anatomy of this thing, because the engineering is actually terrifying. It's not just a bunch of guys running in a triangle, it's a machine designed to break physics. At the very front, at the tip of the spear, you have the Rani, the snout. This isn't the place for the new guys. This spot is reserved for the absolute biggest, meanest, most heavily armoured psychos in the entire army. Usually it's just two men at the very tip. Think about the psychology of that. You are one of those two men. You have no one in front of you. You have the entire enemy army looking at you. Your job is to be the hammer. You are going to faceplant into a wall of shields, and you have to trust that the weight of the 100 men behind you will push you through, rather than just crushing your spine. Behind those two men, you have 3. Behind them, 5. Then 7. It expands like a pyramid. The strength of the boar isn't in the weapons, it's in the compression. In a normal shield wall, you want room to swing your axe. In the boar, you want to be so tight that you can't even breathe deeply. The shields on the outside overlap like dragon scales or, well, like a boar's hide. That's where the name comes from. It's armoured on all sides. So the formation is set. The two giants are at the front. The chant begins. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You don't just run. If you run, the wedge breaks apart, and you're just a scattered mob who gets slaughtered. You have to trot. You have to move in perfect unison. Imagine the sound. Not a chaotic scream, but a rhythmic, heavy thudding of hundreds of boots hitting the mud at the exact same time. It's meant to be hypnotic. It's meant to make the guy standing in the shield wall opposite you start shaking in his boots. But here is the secret that most historians gloss over. The Svinfylking wasn't just about impact, it was about blindness. If you are inside that wedge, you can't see anything. You are staring at the back of the guy's helmet in front of you. You are relying entirely on sound and pressure. You are a single cell in a giant organism. You surrender your free will to the formation. As the boar gets closer to the enemy line, the speed increases. This is the critical moment. If they go too fast, they trip. If they go too slow, they bounce off. They need to hit that perfect sweet spot of momentum. And then, the collision. I want you to really visualize this impact. We aren't talking about sword fighting here. We are talking about physics. Mass times acceleration. When that wedge hits the flat shield wall, the force is focused entirely on a space about 3 feet wide. The poor soul standing in the shield wall at that impact point doesn't get into a duel, he gets deleted. He gets smashed backward with such force that he knocks down the 3 guys behind him. The sound would have been deafening, wood shattering like gunshots, iron bending, ribs snapping. The goal of the boar is simple: penetration. It drives deep into the enemy line, splitting it like an axe splitting a log. This is the moment of truth. This is the turning point. If the boar breaks the line, the battle is basically over. The enemy shield wall is split in 2. The Vikings inside the wedge can now spill out to the left and right, attacking the exposed backs of the enemy. It's panic. It's rout. It's a massacre. But, and this is a huge but, what if the line holds? This is the nightmare scenario. And it happened more often than the sagas like to admit. If the shield wall bends but doesn't break, the boar is in big trouble. Imagine punching a pillow. You sink in, but you don't go through. Now, the enemy shields wrap around the sides of the wedge. This is called the pincer. Suddenly, the boar snout is attacked from 3 sides. The men at the front are stuck. They can't move forward, but the men at the back are still pushing. The pressure builds. You can't lift your arms to defend yourself. You are crushed by your own friends pushing from behind and the enemy pushing from the front. It becomes a meat grinder. This is why the tactic was supposedly a gift from Odin, because only a god of death would invent something that guarantees either total victory or total annihilation. There is no middle ground with the Svinfylking. You win or you die. So how did armies defend against this? Because eventually people figured out how to stop it. You couldn't just stand there and take the hit. You had to be smart. Some clever commanders started using a V formation of their own, but inverted, a swine-trap. When the boar charged, the center of the shield wall would intentionally back up, creating a cup. They would catch the boar snout, cushion the impact, and then close the trap. It's actually kind of funny when you think about it. The ultimate aggressive tactic was defeated by simply stepping backward. By the end of the Viking Age, the Svinfylking started to disappear. Not because it wasn't cool, but because warfare changed. Cavalry started to become a bigger deal. You can't form a tight infantry wedge when a guy on a horse is charging you with a lance. Also, as armies got more professional, they got better at discipline. A shield wall that doesn't panic is really, really hard to break, even with a boar snout. But for a few hundred years, seeing that triangular formation form up across the field was the scariest sight in the world. It represented a specific kind of Viking madness, the willingness to turn yourself into a human projectile. It makes you wonder about the mindset of those men. We tend to think of Vikings as wild berserkers, just screaming and swinging axes. But the Svinfylking proves they were disciplined, they were tactical, they understood engineering and physics intimately. They took the chaos of war and tried to impose order on it, a very violent, sharp, crushing kind of order. So I have to ask you, if you were standing on that field and the chieftain called for the Svinfylking, where would you stand? Would you be safe in the back, just pushing, or would you be crazy enough to volunteer for the tip of the snout? Let me know in the comments if you'd be the hammer or the handle.